So hi everyone, welcome to part 1 in a video series helping you with the assignments for your module Linking Theory and Practice. So in the first video I'm going to give you an overview of the assessment, the learning outcomes, and then in each of the separate videos that follow this we're going to look in depth at each part of the assessment and give you some really good frameworks and tools to not just be successful in passing your assessment, but hopefully to produce a piece of work that you're really proud of. So if we look at the assessment overall, it's very similar to the assessment for your first module. In the same way, it comes in 3 parts, right? And the maximum length, maximum word count for all of these 3 parts is 4,000 words. And again, we have the Sussex 10% plus or minus from that. So for the whole assessment, anywhere between 3,600 and 4,400 words is absolutely fine. So let's have a little skip through the outcomes. As I said, there are separate videos for each of these parts separately, so we're not going to spend too much time here. First up, you have an essay, a kind of main essay section we call it, with 3 learning outcomes. So firstly, you're asked to critically evaluate a range of pedagogic models and their application in the classroom. You're also asked to critically evaluate a range of models and practices of feedback and assessment. And finally, to critically analyse the creation of a positive and effective learning environment in a variety of settings and with diverse learners. So the way in which you do that is, as I said, by writing an essay, and it's an essay in which you're actually making an explicit claim to have achieved those through learning outcomes. Right? The way that we recommend you do this is by undertaking a critical evaluation, really just critiquing 2 to 3 educational models or theories that in some way map and touch upon the learning outcomes. So we break this down in much more depth in a separate video, but your 2 or 3 theories need to take into account the field of teaching and learning, i.e. pedagogy, the realms of feedback and or assessment, and also the realm of kind of learning environment, group dynamic, positive relationships within teaching and learning. Great. So the suggested word count for this is 2,500 words, so the same kind of recommended size as the kind of main essay section for your module 1. Next up, we've got a case study looking at a piece of student support that you've been involved in. This is just one learning outcome, asking you to demonstrate a critically reflective understanding of student support, showing an awareness of relevant legal frameworks and requirements in post-compulsory education. Right, so the word relevant is quite key there. So what we ask you to do is to write an evaluative, anonymised case study of student support in which you've been involved, demonstrating your ability to identify a student's individual support needs, create a plan for working with the student, obviously put the plan into action, and evaluate the degree to which that plan was successful. So within that, this idea of relevant legal frameworks, it's really if the student's individual needs have a kind of legal framework, a requirement linked to it. For example, if they had statemented dyslexia, or you were dealing with a piece of discrimination within the classroom, there are kind of legal rules and guidelines of how you can act appropriately, and showing your understanding of student support. If there are those relevant guidelines, you just need to link them in, be aware of them, reflect upon them. Great. So essentially you're just taking a piece of one-to-one or group support in which you've been involved with, and reflect on how you found out what the issue was, how you created a plan, and how impactful that plan was. Again, the suggested word count for this is 750 words, so it's really not very much at all. And that leaves 750 words for a piece of quality enhancement. Right, so the outcome is to demonstrate a purposeful engagement with quality enhancement processes designed to help improve the student learning experience. Great. So what we mean by quality enhancement is really any formal institutional processes that are set up to improve the quality of what we do, to improve the quality of student learning experience. So we ask for a short, critical account of your engagement with a QE process, for example, the end of course BIM evaluations work, national student surveys work, or the degree to which they work is, I suppose, a point of contention, but they'll do in terms of the assessment. We ask for you to discuss and justify what changes you plan to your course delivery based on the data that you get, why you're going to make these, and what impact these changes are intended to have on the student learning experience. If during the time of write-up you had a chance to actually action some of these, you're more than welcome to write and reflect on the impacts they've had, but this can be a future-focused assignment piece. Great. So, as I've said, there are going to be separate videos for each of those, but where these 3 assignments are similar is in the key theme of this whole module is to put theoretical ideas into a critical and well-linked dialogue with what we do as practitioners. So, the essence of these 3 assignments is for you to show, firstly, that your practice and the decisions that you make as a practitioner are informed by credible theory, and secondly, also to show that your teaching is driven not just by the theory, but by the evidence that you collect, that shows how effectively you're helping your students learn, how well the plans and theories you've been using have worked out in your practice. So, as you can tell, it's kind of moving on from your first module in quite a few ways, namely in the kind of scope of your reading and how kind of critically grounded we want to be as educators. So let's do a quick warm-up to the work. Take 5 minutes for this maybe. Given the learning outcomes, what kinds of theories, what kind of texts, what authors, not just but might you actually choose to look at in relation to the learning outcomes? So that's in relation to teaching and learning, assessment and feedback, creating a positive learning environment or group dynamic, supporting students' individual needs, and making well-informed improvements to your teaching for next year. So I'd recommend you actually just pause the video and jot down some thoughts. What kind of theories, key ideas do you know in relation to those 5? Great. So if you've done that, I just want to share some kind of common ideas that people end up writing about. So, looking at teaching and learning, people often talk about constructivism, e.g. in application, things like scaffolding. Talk about essential questions, threshold concepts, facilitation, really anything that you do as a practitioner, as an educator, relates to teaching and learning in some way. So that first learning outcome's kind of fine. Assessment and feedback, well, obviously you've got the feedback for learning, feedback to sum up learning, the effects of assessment backwash, questioning within the classroom, assessing the level people are within their own zones of proximal development. Then looking at positive learning environment, you might choose things like facilitation. People often look at student motivation, mindset, self-determination theory, things like this, and also classroom management, behaviours for learning. Looking at supporting individual needs, people quite often look at coaching actually as a skill set, also look at questioning, and then looking at the quality enhancement, improvements to your teaching. Well, this is often at a kind of module level, so constructive alignment often comes up, looking at how you use feedback to improve what you do. And that also touches on, the idea and theories around research methods and how you actually find out, good information that points you towards new understanding. So I think a few things to think about when you're approaching the reading for the assessment. Remember that Sussex and our external examiner in particular are going to expect you to be using around 20 to 30 different academic sources within your assignments. So given that and given that scope, how are you going to approach the reading? You know, where are you actually going to go to find useful texts to reference? How are you going to ensure that you're reading critically, you know, for dialogue, not just kind of skimming things and you know, finding surface level understandings? And specifically, what kind of notes are you going to be making to generate kind of the most use for yourself? I think those are kind of useful questions to consider here. Now, there are going to be a few things that will hopefully help you with tackling the reading for the module. Firstly, we've put together all of the slide resources and handouts that we've used during the year onto a shared blog page. So this is the URL, you can go there, you can download, you can use. We also have our shared Dropbox folder. Again, the link to that is actually on the pgresources.wordpress.com. Remember, BIM has EBSCO. It's got its own EBSCO library that you can access by going onto Moodle, going to Student Resources, then EBSCO. They have a few different interesting things there. And you also have access to Sussex's online library that has, you know, a huge host of different contemporary and current academic journals. So you can find stuff that's really on the bleeding edge. And of course, there's also things like Google Scholar. Or actually just doing, you know, a cheeky Google search, or, you know, checking Wikipedia first and then delving deeply. So hopefully, you know, these are all places that you can be going to get really great stuff. So before we close, I think it's useful just talking about some of the next steps. So, you know, after you've actually watched the videos and hopefully constructed a really good plan for each part of the assignment, then you do need to actually spend some time writing, right? So I recommend that you get your draft created early enough to get feedback from us. Not just feedback, but feedback that you're actually going to have time to implement. You know, hopefully go through a few iterations of drafts and feedback. Obviously, we teach the new year of the PG Cert in September, so really our deadline for drafts is August. That kind of final week of August is your very last chance to get useful information back from us. So just try and plan accordingly. It's also worth remembering that editing and proofreading, at least for me, are two quite separate and distinct phases of the whole process. So remember that when you've got your, you know, initial ideas down, you then do want to spend time editing, you know, getting the structure of your argument clear, ensuring the quality of your thinking, you know, are you being critical enough, is really up front and centre. And then you actually, you know, spend quite a lot of time in that phase before doing the proofreading, you know, before actually just trying to tidy up your writing, you know, the prose, correcting any kind of spelling, grammar mistakes, making it look good. For me, if I try and do that bit alongside the editing, I completely screw myself up. So if it's helpful for you, do see them as kind of very separate processes. So get the ideas there first before you worry about making it kind of, you know, look good on the page. So what's next? Hopefully the next few videos are going to be helpful for you, and I'd invite you to watch all of them, or watch them kind of as you tackle the parts of the assignment, and hopefully get a really good plan in place. You know, as always, tutorials are available, so book in, let us know, you know, where and how you want some support. That's it. Take care.